Good morning, Eagles. Welcome to our last semester's episode of Getting to Know. Today our guest is Dr. Cox from the History Office, and we're going to learn a little bit about him today. So, welcome.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, you're leaving FGCU at the end of the semester.
Yeah, that's right. I'm afraid so. Yeah, I just recently accepted a job at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte, and it'll be with greatly mixed feelings that I leave here.
How long have you been at FGCU?
This is the end of my 5th year. I came here in the fall of 2006.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, I was pretty close soon out of graduate school at that time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Straight here.
Yeah.
What is one of your most memorable experiences here at FGCU?
Oh man, I should have anticipated that question. I don't know. I'd say probably I've had a lot of memorable experiences that have come about through my work with the Center for Judaic Holocaust and Human Rights Studies. I've been the director of that for the last 3 or so years. And on behalf of the center, we've brought in a number of very compelling speakers and done some other programs, arts programs, theater productions, and various other things. I guess I have a hard time, thinking of one specific thing.
What made you want to be a teacher initially?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I think probably, if you ask most people that really have a zeal for teaching, it would probably be hard for most of us to come up with an answer, because I think it's just a combination of things that we had and maybe in our formative years. I'm sure I was partly inspired by a couple of very good teachers I had in high school and college. I think that's probably the main thing. I spent a lot of time after college. I worked as a labor organizer, and I did a few other things for about 10 years before I decided to go to graduate school. And then I think I just decided that, so in other words, I had kind of already decided that I just wanted to do something to make some kind of a contribution to make society better.
How did you get started as a labor organizer?
Well, it wasn't easy because I grew up in North Carolina, which doesn't have a lot of labor unions. But in college, I became very interested in labor issues. I was from a family where I'd learned about these things. And then I was in a part of North Carolina where a lot of people work in very in underpaid jobs. We have, really like sweatshops is what you'd have to call them, textile mills and garment shops.
Really?
Yeah, really. There's some, in some ways, it's quite reminiscent. Well, in New York City and elsewhere too, there are places that can accurately be called sweatshops, which sometimes might conjure up an image of factories in the Philippines or China.
Yeah.
But we have factories that don't have quite as appalling conditions, but still where people are being paid less than minimum wage, and where they're deprived of their right to collectively to organize. And so I worked with the labor union called the Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union to try to organize some factories in North Carolina.
So you would say that the labor organizing helped you develop a special interest specifically in genocide and Holocaust?
Yeah, it may have, although I didn't work anywhere where genocide was taking place. But I did work. But I mean, it deepened my interest and maybe sensitivity toward issues of human rights, which of course are closely connected to issues of mass human rights and atrocities. So yeah, I do see these things as connected. They're all of different levels and whatnot, but I do think that that also it's important for us to not only try to learn about maybe terrible things in the past like the Holocaust, but I hope that the study of the Holocaust also deepens people's sensitivity and vigilance toward confronting abuses and atrocities in our own midst.
Your online biography says you went to a conference in Poland?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's actually not too unusual, especially for people who work on the Holocaust. There are a lot of international conferences, so I've spent a lot of time in Europe. I lived in Berlin for a year when I was doing my work on my dissertation. And so in fact, I'm going to be back in Berlin in 2 weeks for a few weeks. And then, and so that's also, also sometimes you'll hear professors, including me, I admit, say about how terrible it is, we're not being paid enough, we work too hard, but then we do, there are some upsides, So, but yeah, I was at that conference, that was probably 3 years ago. That's the only time I've been in Poland, and that conference was not too far from Auschwitz, so that was actually the one time when I visited the Auschwitz camp, which was an experience that can't really be described very coherently or concisely, but it was obviously very powerful and moving experience. But yeah, and I've attended other conferences in Portugal and Germany and Holland and a few other places.
You're currently working on a book?
Yeah, I am. I'm writing a book for Pearson Prentice Hall and on genocide in the 20th century. And so what I'll do with that book is I'm writing chapters on 4 genocides. Unfortunately, there were many to choose from, which is sad to say, but that's the case. But anyway, I'm focusing on the Holocaust, the Armenian genocide, which unfolded in the midst of World War I, and then also the genocides in Cambodia and Rwanda in the 70s and 90s. And then I'm finding ways to draw some connections between these and to draw some larger conclusions about how these terrible phenomena have come about.
Wow. What are you hoping students or anybody who reads your book pulls from it?
Yeah, sure. I guess for one thing, they'll decide that they want to be a force against, mass violence and evil. And again, sometimes, and also sometimes when you work on the Holocaust, it can lead to kind of simplistic slogans like, if we study the Holocaust, we'll never allow it to happen again. But unfortunately, that's not really true, because humanity has allowed similar atrocities to unfold since World War II. I guess from this book, it's a book that I hope is going to be aimed at kind of an upper-level college audience and a larger readership. So I just hope that maybe it'll just make people think more deeply, for one thing, about how the Holocaust fits into a broader context, because I think that's very important. And just also that there are certain human instincts and impulses that in certain times and places have exploded into terrible violence. And so maybe this book will make some small contribution to trying to recognize where these things are happening.
So with all your research about what caused the Holocaust and why genocide occurs, do you believe that the core of humanity or mankind is essentially good or evil?
Oh man, you'll have to take maybe a course with Dr. Aho or Dr. Whitehouse or somebody in philosophy. And of course that's a debate that goes back some centuries. I don't really have a good answer to that. I've always tried to think that humankind was essentially good, and that there are social and historic and cultural factors that I can always see in these in isolated cases, whether it's Cambodia, Rwanda, Nazi Germany. I can see certain factors that induced people to do what they did, and that induced other people to keep silent. Yet I'm kind of come more to the realization that maybe there are certain instincts that humans have. Maybe it's an instinct about an us versus them mentality, which doesn't necessarily have to be channeled toward violence, but sometimes it can be. Maybe instincts. So anyway, I do think that maybe there are some instincts that we have that can lead us toward violence.
Well, what is, from your college experience and your life experience, what do you think is one thing students should take advantage of while they're in school?
Yeah, I would say one thing students should take advantage of is any opportunity that they have to leave, and not to leave school, but to leave the country and travel if you can, because in 5 years you might be a slave to a desk and to a family, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Everyone should have a family, I guess. But you might be thinking when you're 25 or 30, which isn't that old, but still you might be thinking, man, I should have traveled and tried to take advantage of a study abroad. It really changes your perspective, and it's just a very enriching experience. What
do you think are the keys to success in life?
Okay, get an education. I don't know. That's a tough one. You have to ask maybe Oprah or Dr. Phil or something. Yeah, right. No, I don't know, but I do think that you've been given a rare opportunity that not everyone in the world or everyone in our country has to education. So again, I'd just say, with some humility, because I'm not the world's leading philosopher on the meaning of life, but I do think if you have the good fortune to attend university, to take advantage of it, to try to view education as something that isn't just a utility or, a key to a higher paycheck, but an opportunity to really deepen and enrich your intellectual life.
On your bucket list, what is the most recent thing you've crossed off?
I didn't even know about a bucket list until that movie.
Oh, really?
No. I don't know. Actually, it was a soccer match. I went to a soccer match in Barcelona last May.
Oh, nice.
And it was a big match, and I would say that's something I had to do.
Did you paint your body? Oh,
I didn't go that far. No, I was afraid I might end up on YouTube or on Facebook, and I might get in trouble, with university. Say, a professor not supposed to be getting painted up.
Expressing your views.
Yeah.
What is a quality or aspect you wish all people could possess?
I guess I would just like, maybe all people do possess this, but I would like if I could say if all people could cultivate their compassion for other people and their ability to empathize and understand other people. I've already talked a couple times, and obviously because I think about it a lot, about anti-immigrant bias and hysteria sometimes. And I think a lot of times that people just don't understand the difficult life journey and arduous, travels that people, if someone has been uprooted by economic or political forces or violence from a small village in Mexico or elsewhere in Central America, they've made a very difficult journey to try to find a better life elsewhere, here in the United States often. I think that if people understood, had more compassion for other human beings, tried to understand that, a little bit more of the diversity and richness and tragedies that are part of the human experience, then I think it would be very difficult for people to be stirred up toward blind hatred or prejudice toward, in this case, toward Latino immigrants. So I guess I would say a deeper sense of compassion and understanding of the varieties of human experience.
When you pass on, what do you most hope to be remembered for? Or just at FGCU, what do you hope to be remembered for?
I guess I would say that maybe he, really cared about his students and really cared about something other than his career or his paycheck, which I don't, because history professors don't go into it to make a lot of money. I think that we really do go into it out of a sincere dedication to students, and I hope that I've maintained that dedication and zeal, and that's how I would be remembered.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the time we have. FGCU is going to miss you.
Yeah, well, thanks.
I think you're very important to our programs here, and I'm sure all your students are going to miss you as well.
Okay, well, thanks. That's nice.
Thanks for coming.
I've got some students who are going to be glad to see me go after the semester. Not really, but no, I'll deeply and sincerely miss everybody here. But I won't be that far away. It's a short flight, and I really am going to be coming back to see some friends, and I'll always be an eagle in spirit, I think.
Great. Well, you're always an honorary eagle for us. Students, we'd like to thank you for watching our show, and be sure to tune in next semester. Have a great summer.